This panel is going to be really fun. We have Prabal and Dave here with me, and we have one more speaker coming. She's on her way. She's busy working on her startup. So what this panel is going to be about is essentially what makes for authentic connections. And the reason this is really interesting is that all three of these founders had very diverse backgrounds. They moved from multiple different industries, some of them 3 or 4 different industries, and they've all founded companies in areas that they never previously worked in. So how do you enter those fields? How do you build relationships? How do you maintain the founder mindset through all of the ups and downs? That's what this panel will be about. We're going to try to move quickly through the discussion so that we leave enough time for you to ask the real questions. What was great about this panel is that we got together on a call maybe 2 weeks ago, and we just started talking. We totally ran out of time. And when we talk about authentic connections, this really set the stage for us. Alicia, who will join us shortly, invited all of us over, including Madison, to her apartment. And we went out there last Thursday, and half an hour became an hour became 2 hours, 2 hours became 3. After 3 hours, Alicia kicked us out. So with that, I had the opportunity to learn so much about these individuals and see just how genuine they are and how much they have to share with you. So with that, we'll dive in. First, I want to understand from the crowd, easy, lowball question. How many of you have struggled with building connections that move your startup ideas forward or move your career forward, or are currently struggling with that? Show of hands. All right, almost everyone. So have these individuals. So we'll start off with Prabal. If you could share a little bit about your background and your company and what makes you really audacious in theme of the conference.
All right. Hi, everybody. I hope everybody can hear me. I've been told that I should be really near the mic so that everybody can hear me in the universe. Should be back? Okay, thank you. Thank you for that feedback. My name is Prabal. For those who struggle to pronounce it, it sounds like trouble. That's what I do. I've been doing since I remember. For every meeting I go, I self-humor myself. And when I say my name sounds like trouble and it's Prabal, nobody forgets that. So again, just finding your own ways to figure out how you really want to be there, and you start to make connection, and you start with a laugh as you're trying to build those human connections. So I am a president and founder to a new to the world, now not new to the world. We launched 3 years back. We make healthy, delicious chicken bites. We are trying to really build a brand that challenges the paradigms that exist in market today. If you as Americans, we snack 5 to 6 times a day, and it's all about sugar and carbs. We are trying to really bring in more protein-led food in the system, and we're really trying to change how Americans snack. So very exciting. I had no background in food before I started. I only got into food when my daughter was born. And you will eat at McDonald's, and your daughter is born, you'll see the surprisingly that you don't eat in McDonald's anyway, or you're not allowed to by a wife, whatever the reason is. So I've been on this journey. It's funny. I was telling Mansi that 2019, I remember I was in your shoes. I was sitting right there when I was about to start my company, and I came here to just listen and learn more about the ecosystem. And I think although I had experience in CPG, I think that's where I really started. So I'm really excited to be here and share whatever I've learned along the way. What makes me audacious? The 2 things I would say. One is I am fearless in the sense I don't really worry about outcomes, and I think that becomes really important because a lot of times we become our own enemies by saying what we have our expectations. We say, what will people think about it? And even you're talking to somebody, instead of focusing on being curious and learning more and making those connections, we're more trying to figure out how do we move the ball forward so that I can get to my objectives. So I think you have to be out there. You have to be fearless. And second thing is finality in terms of anything that's happening is all dependent on you. So you decide the end of your story. And all of us on this side, and even you in all your life experiences would know that it's you who decide when things end. We all seek rejections. We all get rejected multiple times, and I think it's for you to say, I do not accept it. I move on, and that's when you will continue to move forward, no matter what happens, and things will work out. So, I think that's who I am.
That's awesome, and it's great to see that it came full circle. So. Maybe 4 years from now, one of these folks will be up here as well. So Dave, I'll kick it over to you for a little bit about your background.
Sure. Hi. Actually, hello world to all my coders. My name is Dave Garapi. I am the founder of Delivery Operator Technologies LLC. And yeah, a little bit about myself. I started my career at Deloitte as an auditor. I worked there for 4 or 5 years, and then I was looking for a change, and I moved to LA and worked in Hollywood for a couple of years, figurative and literal Hollywood, and worked on a few TV shows and movies, and then got into software development in between projects and started freelancing, built a couple projects, saw an opportunity in the past couple of years in the cannabis industry, and have been building out our platform for e-commerce for Massachusetts delivery operators, which is a license type created by the Cannabis Control Commission. So something that makes me audacious maybe is the calculated risks I guess I've taken in my career in terms of changing careers, introducing myself to people just cold, you know, getting myself out there and just meeting people. So yeah, taking some risks.
So on that note, Dave, you shared with us a story last week about when you were in the film industry and you were looking for a job change and you walked into a room and there's somebody very high up and you just pitched yourself. So when you talk about calculated risks, can you tell us how do you decide when to take that risk in building a connection or a relationship? And then, how did you approach putting yourself out there?
Yeah, so a lot of stories from Hollywood. The creative industry is very much based on project to project type of work. It's not like you have a steady job for multiple years. You're sort of in control of your own projects. So at Deloitte, it was project based, but we had the umbrella, the comfort of Deloitte, and in between projects you would be on the quote unquote beach. So I think really it came to selling myself and sort of having to get myself out there, introduce myself to people, and also leveraging my network, just as the name of our chat says. I think that's really a great word. When I first moved to Hollywood, for example, I did phone a friend. I had a friend from high school by the name of Austin, and I was looking for a change at the time, and we had been discussing moving out to LA, and he said, come on out. I'm going to have a new bedroom open up, and you should try it out. And he introduced me to my first project that I worked on with CNN. It was the 60s, which was quite a big project for CNN. And from there, one thing led to another. So I think there's someone to vouch for you in a way and kind of get you in the proverbial door. And then from there, just kind of being a hard worker, respectful, and ability to learn and listen. And I think when people see that you are trying and really putting in a full effort, they're going to want you on their team. So that was the case at the Deloitte. That was the case in Hollywood, and I think in many other industries, if you can kind of leverage your network, get yourself into an avenue that you want to go in, and then you have to still execute and sort of prove your worth. I think it's okay to lean on people, and I think that that's a key to get it going.
And then I recall you mentioned there was like a connection of a connection that really gave you the door opening to the cannabis industry. So what did that look like for you?
Yeah, so for the cannabis industry, it's so new, and I think people are still figuring it out in terms of getting out there. There are a lot of events, so I've been to events, introduced myself, kind of explained what I'm doing, my vision for my project, and I think a lot of people are open, to new ideas. If you're able to solve problems and help people with efficiencies and whatnot. They'll give you an ear, to listen. So in terms of networking wise, I think probably just getting out there, going to events. A lot of events, they'll have booths and tables, and you can introduce yourself to the founder of companies a lot. They'll be at the booth, and I've sparked up a lot of conversations there, and then one thing has led to another. So for this event specifically, I was talking about how I went to an event at a dispensary and met someone from the insurance industry, and then from there. It was a guy by the name of Jake Kaplan. Jake introduced me to some people from the Startup Boston Week, and lo and behold, here I am. So, one thing kind of leads to another, I think. And, this is a quote from Steve Jobs, where you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only really connect them looking back. And there are happy accidents that happen. There are serendipity, as we were talking about last week during dinner. And you kind of have to put yourself in an area where you kind of create luck for yourself. And we got excited about the concept of luck surface area, right? Where you have this opportunity and, your skill, your expertise. And when you kind of match them up, you can increase your luck surface area by going to more events, meeting more people, putting yourself out there, like kind of doing that cold call, doing that cold email, and creating luck for yourself, I guess.
Yeah. I think some of that luck takes time is maybe what I learned from you all as well. I didn't do my intro at the start. I am Monsi. I'm currently the co-president of the Entrepreneurship Club at the Harvard Business School, and I'm a rising second year. And I think that really clicked with me last week because I came from Fortune 500, very large company, and wanted to move into the startup world. And when I came into business school last year, it felt like I was going back to ground zero after 7 years of working all over the world, launching new products. I would walk up to people in the startup world and they would look at me and their eyes would glaze over. But over the year of building relationships, getting to know people, showing up at all the Boston downtown events for startups, now walking into second year, I have so many opportunities that just weren't even on the radar a year ago. That were shaped by that and people taking a chance on me. So it just took time. But Alicia, welcome to the panel.
Hi, everyone.
This connects right over to you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Moxie, what makes you audacious, and then I'll pick up on the discussion we were having with Dave.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Alicia, founder of Moxie Scrubs. We are the most trusted brand for the most trusted profession, and that's nurses. We are 2 years old, and we launched actually as an official partner to the American Nurses Association. We're one of the startups at the Harvard Innovation Lab, and today we have a community over 800,000 nurses under the Moxie brand. And so we're really excited about sharing our learnings with all of you here today, how to make an impression like being fashionably late in ethnic Western business fusion clothing. And so when we have our unicorn exit, you're going to say, I remember that founder. She showed him in a hot pink sari and was late to Startup Week Boston. But no one's here is going to forget me.
Perfect. I'm sure there's a story waiting to be told. So on that note, what do you think makes you audacious, Alicia?
To be my authentic self, the good and the bad, and to have the courage and confidence to do that. Nobody forgets me. And I am always going to give you my genuine opinion, and I'm always going to genuinely help you. And one person after the other, that's how you build a community, and you pay it forward.
Yeah. You told us a really interesting story last week about when you were at the Innovation Lab, and was it Tommy Hilfiger? Or who was it that showed up?
It was Tommy Hilfiger.
Yep.
And there I was, not dressed as nice, but in a blazer. And I saw a crowd of people around this gentleman at the iLab, and I said, wait, I know this guy. I Googled Tommy Hilfiger because I thought that's who it was, and it was Tommy Hilfiger. So I walked right up to him in front of the crowd, waited for a pause, so I wasn't being rude to cut anybody off, made eye contact and said, Mr. Hilfiger, it's so nice to meet you. I am working in fashion. I'm one of the startups here at the iLab. I'd love to tell you more. Can you walk over to my table? And I immediately took him away from the entire crowd of people that were just vying for his attention, put my scrubs in his hands right away, and got his honest opinion. And he said he'd love to partner. Unfortunately, I didn't get his follow-up information and counted on his assistant. That didn't happen, but I was audacious enough to walk right up to him and introduce myself politely and have a memorable experience with him.
And that takes some guts, right? Like, I don't know that I would know how to step in front of that crowd or even have thought to pull somebody over to my startup table of such stature. So I think that's really incredible. And what you told us was that it wasn't always easy. Right? It takes a lot of energy. And I think you shared with us that coming from a diverse background or a female founder background, it's definitely a different experience. So you went through your own transitions in terms of how you present yourself, how you put yourself out there. Could you detail some of that out for those in the audience who relate?
Gosh, Hansi, you're getting right to the tea over here.
Oh, we're going to get there with these two. Don't worry.
I had a very diverse background, born and raised in New York City. I grew up Christian, Jewish, and Hindu. So you can imagine how confused I was. And now I've really embraced my identity as a citizen of the world. I love my, Indo-American heritage, and I love the Jewish culture that I also grew up a part of. And it allows me to really authentically connect with people from their point of view. A lot of times when you interact with people, you kind of take it personally and you're thinking, oh, it's, what did I do wrong? But actually, it's usually like 99% of the time the other person. And if you can take a step back and remember that, you're going to connect with people in a whole new compassionate and authentic level that also allows people to come to you in that same way. And so it wasn't easy finding my identity. It wasn't easy being a brown person in high school during September 11th, which we just had the anniversary of. It was tough. And, people looked at me and said, go back to your country. And I'm like, I was born here. And so I had to really find that inner strength of who I am and what I am and defend it. And I did a lot of traveling. I went all over the world, backpacking. I highly recommend traveling alone. I think that came up in one of our conversations. And it made me have that strength. And now the reason why I named the company Moxie Scrubs is because it takes moxie to be an entrepreneur, and it takes moxie to work in healthcare today. So I have to find that strength, that force of character, that determination, that grit, and really do what I believed in. And now I've found all these amazing people who see that too and believe in me and believe in our mission. And that's how in just 2 short years, we are where we are today.
Right. That's amazing. And Prabal, I know we haven't had the chance to tap into you yet. Is there anything that struck you from Alicia's story about being yourself, and how have you put yourself out there in terms of relating to customers in a totally new industry?
Yeah, no, I think, great perspective. From my vantage point, I always think about this, like, you just first have to be really comfortable of who you are, because as I go back to my introduction, we always are the ones who are stopping ourselves of saying what we can do, and we are putting limits to it. I would say, a lot of time I get questions saying, I'm an introvert. How do I go forward with it? I don't want to walk in the room, and I'm not comfortable owning the room. And I think my point always is that, it's steps, you're just overthinking it. Showing up really helps, no matter what it is, wherever you are in your journey of building your network, showing up really helps, being authentic, being curious, talking to somebody in the eye and being really genuinely interested. A lot of times I go to events and people would be talking to me for a minute and then quickly they'll jump into saying, hey, can I grab a meeting with you? Like, you cannot plan these things. And no matter what anybody says, and in my opinion, and that's my experience, people like working with people they like. So you need to really, say what makes you unique, what makes you likable, and be genuine. And more diverse events you go to, more different kinds of people you talk to, you get this enriched perspective about, learning about human to human touch. And that's what we forget. Networking is all about connecting as humans. Technology is great. Your outcomes are great. They'll not go anywhere. But, like Alicia said, like, just being authentic, bringing your best selves, whoever you are, being comfortable with it, and being relentless. Like everybody on on the panel can tell you that we go to different events and we just show up. Sometimes we are not feeling well, we're not into it. All the things that you see takes a lot of effort, but we show up because we know there's a value to it, and you don't know when those serendipitous moments can happen and lead you to places which will be a growth for you.
Fearless and relentless. Those were the two that I'm hearing from Prabal. And Alicia, you mentioned a quote to us last week about no is your next opportunity. So,
oh gosh. Any founders or aspiring founders here? All right. There's so many of you. Well, congratulations for starting this journey and coming here. And I'm going to tell you, you're going to hear no more times than you hear yes. Period. So brace yourself. Remember that. Be a duck, water off a duck's back, and keep going, because no means next opportunity. You're closer to your yes. So if this is not the right fit, find that quickly and then move on to the next opportunity, because the more time you spend beating a dead horse is also time away from going to that yes, that right mentor, that right investor, that right opportunity. So be authentically strong and believe in yourself and what you're doing to hear that no and move on and know it's not the right fit for you. So it's really important that you guys get comfortable hearing no. I heard 100 no's to start an apparel company during the pandemic, but less than 2% of funding went to women last year, and Moxie raised a pre-seed round of $2.4 million.
Ooh.
Can you imagine how many no's I heard? So keep that in mind and remember that you're only as strong as you believe you are. You're only going to be as successful as you believe you're going to be. So keep going, guys.
And just to add on that, there is something to be said about networking effect. You just have to increase your luck surface area, keep doing it. And I think I would tell you for a fact that when you look at different founders, the way they do differently is that they just consider this as a journey. As a founder, you'll get so ups and downs. Like we have more downs than we have things to celebrate, but you are at it. And if you learn to be excited about the journey and you are at it all the time and you don't worry about outcome, because honestly, outcome is not under your control in any way. All you can do is focus on what's on your control, and what you can control is your effort in terms of putting into your company, really believing in the vision and mission of what you're really trying to do, and genuinely trying to increase and know people and create this fellowship of people who can support you when the time comes. No founder can stand alone. They all need a fellowship of people who understand their struggles. And that's what you need to figure out. How do you create that network, which is a long-term play. You don't expect that I'm going to a networking event and 2 weeks from that time I got the contract. You can ask Alicia. We raised 4 million plus, and I know how many times we have heard no, how many times we have to go at it time and again. And I think it's perseverance, relentless, and your passion that takes you forward.
And that all you need is that one yes, right? You got the American Nurses Association, massive organization, massive success that came from that. And Prabal as well, 4 million. During the pandemic you were raising?
Yeah, we built during the pandemic. But again, even if you raise money, your journey doesn't stop. We still keep doing it. I'm here today. On Sunday, we'll be at Boston Local Food Festival. Then we are going to Expo East in Philly. It's all about showing up, relentlessly showing up, talking to people. Because if I talk to you and I say, well, how important it is to eat healthy, you know that. But I can really convince you and persuasive because I keep talking about it and my passion comes through. I was telling Mansi about it, I practice my pitch lines actually on people because that's my use case. So I go to a gathering and say, this happens, and people's reaction is like, that was not good. All right, move on. I have to say something else. So for example, I'll say my product is the tendermost product in the market. It's the tendermost jerky you'll ever have. And your dentist will thank you because you'll not break your teeth anymore. And people are like, oh, I get it. So noted. So you're always working the angles, always trying to figure out what's the right thing to say. And it doesn't come naturally. Like I have butterflies in my stomach all the time. But then, like Alicia said, you have to have courage to overcome that, to push yourself to see what's possible, and then opportunities happen.
Yeah. And there's some samples at the back if you're not convinced yet by the speech.
Yeah, you don't have to be a dinosaur.
So, Dave, I want to come back to you. There's something extra that came to mind from this discussion. is that you mentioned a story last week about how a lot of the work that you're doing, you actually do some social impact work alongside. Like you offer your company up to people who are trying to become first-time founders. But some of those populations might look or feel very different from your background. So you're walking into rooms that are, you might stand out. So how do you show that you genuinely care and that you're here to kind of be a part of the community you're building?
Yeah, for sure. Excuse me. So something, I guess, unique about the license that I am sort of solving problems for or around with the delivery operator license is that it's been reserved for social equity program in Massachusetts. And so the background on that, the context is that the state did a statistical analysis and determined areas of disproportionate impact on the war on drugs. And so, yeah, we basically provide websites for free prior to launch. And, I think Prabal mentioned mission and values. And so, a lot of this networking stuff, I think for me, like being like salesy, like doesn't feel great. So it's like, I don't like the transactional aspect of it. And I don't think, I think once I kind of realize that it doesn't have to be transactional, you can have authentic connections with people. You don't have to always be closing, as they say. I think being mission driven, being of service to people, not expecting something in return, be giving, provide value. We connected on LinkedIn, Alicia, and I just had the idea that maybe your scrubs could work in a cultivation setting. That cost me nothing to share that with you. That could be a huge future revenue for you. So just things like that, kind of always thinking of being helpful and then being of service to people and having a mission, I think, will get you through hard times, those times where maybe you're lonely or you're unsure of the next step. I think if you're mission driven, you'll find your why, and that will sort of be your North Star.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you touched on something there that I know Madison was really hoping we would get out of this conversation, which is, connecting across industries and the loneliness aspect of being a founder. So what I found unique about the discussion last week was over 3 hours of, cooking pizzas and grilled corn and hanging out. There was a lot of commonalities, even though these are 3 very different industries in terms of your founder experience. So Dave, did you want to share a little bit about how you build your founder community? Like, what does it feel like to be a solo founder without, yet building that full team, and how do you maintain your community?
Yeah, so I have a lot of people to thank. First of all, my parents have been very supportive of all my crazy ventures. But the social equity community, I think when you introduce yourself to people, if you're genuine and kind, and if they are an entrepreneurial-minded person, they will also be looking to help you. So finding that community, even outside of my, personal circle, getting out there and introducing myself to people. I've had people that I've given demos to and I've stayed in contact with, and they've gotten back to me just to check in on me. That was very thoughtful. And I think when you're on a founder journey, you sort of adopt this, it's not actually adopted, it's you're sort of thrust into it maybe. The struggle of trying to get a business started because it's super hard. And so I think when you get beaten down, by the harshness of the market or whatever, and you're sort of trying to force yourself through, it builds some character, but it also builds empathy because you're humbled by how hard it is. And so I think when that happens, you have empathy, and that's I think created some of the suggestions I made with Alicia. I'm thinking, how can I help? How can I give? And I think when you give, there's, eventually it will come back to you. Maybe not how you want it to or realize it will, but that energy will come back.
Yeah, just to add on that, I think also as a founder, you learn really fast that you have to embrace your vulnerability. A lot of us, as we grow up in our systems, we just don't want to show our vulnerable side. And as a founder, you learn firsthand that you need to embrace your vulnerability and it's okay to ask for help. Everybody needs help. And the successful founders or successful folks are those who will go out and say, I need help, I need to find solution for this help. And you'll talk to people. You talk to people, that leads to one step to another. And I think that becomes really important. And again, in all of that, being authentic helps. It's not a transaction. It is just a way to saying, hey, I need help. You raise your hand, I need help, and you will be surprised amount of kindness around the world that people will come and help you. And I think we are stopping ourselves because we're saying, I don't want to be, people love LinkedIn because LinkedIn is raising money and they're doing that. That's all a facade, right? Like everybody needs help. You just need to know how to ask for help. When I started, the reason I used to come to these conferences and all over the country, I used to go specifically to learn and just observe founders. Even though if I didn't have the guts to talk to them or didn't get an opportunity to, I'll just observe them, listen to them. And time and again, everybody said, you cannot do this alone. You should embrace your vulnerability and ask for help. So I ask all of you, all the aspiring founders or somebody who will found a company who is not thinking right, or maybe 3 of us inspire you to start something and pursue your dream. Don't be afraid of asking for help. There are a lot of kindness in the world. If you don't ask, you'll not solve it, and you cannot solve this or build this by all your by self.
And one other part that I learned last week too is, if I imagine when you enter this founder world, you kind of enter this alternate universe that most of your friends and family don't understand. This journey that you're going on. Prebble's wife now is starting her own company, so it's the two of you together. But Alicia, you mentioned the value of having people actually outside the founder world, how you have a different perspective on how that actually helps you maintain your resilience in your startup.
Yeah, particularly with our startup, it's the team. And while a founder gets a lot of the glory because we take most of the risk, you're not able to do what you do without your backbone of the day-to-day operators who also find enjoyment and fulfillment from being a part of your company, from growing your vision and getting satisfaction from being a part of that. And so I had a lot of hard learnings as a new founder, finding the right talent, finding the right people, and finding the right combination of both. And early on, I hired a ton of people I liked, and they weren't able to do the job. And it was so hard to let them go. And so that was my evolution as a founder was, hire very slow, but fire very fast, because you'll see your resources are limited. And you, as a founder, it's your unique job to really maximize your capital. I see so many of you shaking your heads here. So I see that you've been through it. We're battle tested. But today I have an amazing team that when I wake up in the morning, I'm so excited to talk to them. I'm so excited to work with them. And I feel they feel the same way. I don't make them reach out to me at strange hours or anything. But we have this great culture where somebody has an idea or somebody has a solution to something, and we're so excited, we send it to each other right away. And I think that is very special. And I think that's why we're going to succeed, is because everybody on our team is on that same mission together. But 100%, I'm only as good as my team. So all the accolades and being at talking, at panels and things like that, my success would not have come without the right operators. And so remember that as you build your startups and you find your right mentors, you find your right advisors, and you make your first hires.
Yeah, and just to add on that, I think that's a great point, because when you have teamwork, you're working as a team, you have employees in your startup, and then you also have your coaches and what not. They all come with their own networks. Don't be afraid to ask for help. I can't tell you, we got into CVS. We're in 3,000 CVS stores now. For a young company, that was a great feat. We got into Walmart just because one of the head of our sales had a network, and we were able to tap into that network. So understanding, creating those authentic relationships with people around you, and then really trying to understand where they can help. And it all starts with, I don't know this. can you help me? And you would be surprised at creative ways in which people will come forward. And I think that's again, just trying to say that again, that don't be afraid to ask for help.
So on that note, I want to thank all three of you. We're going to turn it over to open Q&A. So this is your chance to ask for help or any other questions that you might have for these three founders. All right.
And it's okay if we say no, so don't worry. Like somebody's like $1 million, I'm like,
Hey, thank you so much for the insights. Really appreciate it. Shazab Lada just launched a startup in the talent space. Advisors and how you've leveraged advisors, their networks, and when do you feel you've overextended yourself versus been appropriate? Because it is a balance, right? And it's a journey of building the relationships, and relationships take time, they take trust. They can be eroded very quickly. So how do you manage that in a very tactful yet appropriate manner?
Can I take that one actually? Okay. I have a lot to say about advisors. And there's a thing that is said about women founders who are extremely underfunded and over-mentored. Everybody wants to come to your rescue and say, oh, I'm an expert. Let me help you, little girl. I can't tell you how much of that I went through. And I realized not everybody who's giving you advice or seems to be a great advisor is actually the right advisor for you or your company. And so I think when you are vetting and building these relationships with advisors, be very clear what you need from them before you begin these relationships. Because I've had advisors come back and say, well, I deserve X, Y, Z. And you're like, we never talked about X, Y, Z. The actual things I asked you for were 1, 2, 3, and you didn't even deliver any of that. So be very firm and clear and have clear defined deliverables with those advisors and use benchmarks, what's appropriate in the industry. Because when you're a new founder or a new startup, you're going to get people that see that vulnerability in you and they're going to take advantage of it. But conversely, I've had amazing advisors who stepped in and said, that is not appropriate. And, go to bat for me. And so you, as a founder, it rests with you to trust your gut and be very clear with what you need. And if you're not sure what you need, then it's not the time for that advisor or for you to be looking for an advisor.
I would add to that is, first, you need to know who you are, what your competence is. So for example, you're building this HR solution, you know everything that's to know about HR, you know about tech, but selling is not your forte. Understanding what advisors, in my opinion, should be built in a way where you can get some complementary skills, because you're trying to really understand and make sure that you cannot do everything alone. Like you're not expert in everything, right? Some people are good at selling, some people are not, whatever. So find out who the right thing is. It doesn't matter if they are in the same industry, because a lot of times it's a transferable skill, and that's where you start trying to figure out like who has gone through that journey, who can really help me, because no point reinventing the wheel. So just trying to really figure out who those people and have an honest conversation. Like, hey, I'm here. I'm just looking to start with, just to talk to you and pick your brain. It need not be transactional. Like I'll give you this, you give me that. Just have a conversation, and you'll be surprised how many times people are willing to help, talk to you, and share knowledge. So start with seeing who you are seeking, and start from there as you are trying to build that company. All the best.
A quick follow-up, Alicia, how do you benchmark advisors?
So a really great move that I made early on in our journey was joining accelerator programs. We were part of Mass Challenge, then we were part of TIE Scale Up and the Harvard Launch Lab X programs. And I cannot tell you how amazing the community is around each of these programs. And there's a lot of mentors there who want to genuinely help your startup. And a lot of them are successful entrepreneurs who know what it's like and have been through it and want to pay that forward. And so a lot of the good decisions we've made has been through a lot of the mentors we found in these programs. And many of them are equity free as well, by the way. So it doesn't mean you have to give up equity for some of these programs.
And I think these initial conversations, again, when you go along a way in terms of founding a company, you would start seeking board of directors. So making these genuine connections over a period of time, as you build trust, you'll automatically find people who would be rightly fitting into your board of directors to continue to make sure that your company scales. So it just starts with the first step, understanding yourself and trying to see what you're seeking.
I think we have a question at the back there.
Hi, everyone. So the question is, how do you get to know people in a network that you're not part of? You're kind of on the outside. So the concrete example I have is, so before this, I started a mental health tech company. So, and my background is software, and I'm not a clinician. And so like trying to talk to people who are like therapists was hard. I had to find them. Not all of them wanted to talk to me. So, but I solved that problem. So my next problem is now I'm trying to start my next company. I have some ideas around helping people in psychiatry. I don't know any psychiatrists. And now I'm the software guy trying to talk to psychiatrists. Any advice on how to get to know people in the network that you're not part of when you don't quite have the insider creds?
Actually,
You wanna take it, Dave?
you can go ahead.
Yeah, so I would, maybe this is sort of a base kind of way of thinking about it, but in terms of like watering holes, like in the natural world, like where do the animals go to that like they're attracted, right? So like Facebook groups, Reddit, subreddits, industry events. It might be some tangentially related thing that's sort of on the side, like it might be a psychiatrist payroll focus thing, or it's like if they're trying to solve a business problem, like you might be able to attend an event, or online there are a lot of communities online. So I think starting to think outside the box more in terms of where those people hang out, and then trying to attend an event, or explain what you're doing. Say, hey, I'm a software developer. If it's a Facebook group, for example, I did this actually. It was a social equity group, and I just said, hey, I'm Dave. Like, I'm a software developer. I'm excited about this industry, and I'm looking to maybe this was earlier on, build something to solve some of these problems. And so there were people that responded. That did turn into calls, and even years later, still hosting websites for some of those people. So I would say, kind of think outside of the box a little bit.
Yeah, go to the events. Like, this is a great place for biotech, this region. The good thing is, like you said, find where the herds are. So oftentimes there are psychiatric events, paper presentations. Go there, be the odd man out. People like, what are you doing? I'm a software. I really want to talk to them, get interested what they're doing. Hey, you wrote this great paper. I have no idea what it is. Can you just give me like what it is all about? This is very fascinating. And talk to them as you're really trying to learn, you're curious, and that will pay dividends. So you have to find where they are, whether it's social, whether they're physical events. And then we all are connected to each other, 6 degrees of separation, right? Somebody somewhere would know a psychiatrist. Somewhere, find those people, find those connections, 2nd or 3rd degree connections. You will find them. You just don't give up. You just keep going at it.
Actually, I have some real tactical advice for you, because I'm not a nurse, and everyone's like, wait, were you a nurse? Why did you start this lifestyle brand for nurses? And it was actually my appreciation of nurses that made me want to take care of nurses the way they take care of us. And similarly, when you're looking at psychiatrists, I would start with your why. Why do you want to support them? What is the gap in the market that's really going to alleviate some kind of problem for them? And focus on that problem. And then we live in the day and age of social media and hashtags. So I would actually look for prominent psychiatrists, like who are these, this target demographic that you're working on following on social media? What are those hashtags and what is the content? And then I would actually start building content around what they're consuming. And then I would find those influencers and then have them endorse my message. And that's how you grow, your community, build that network, and build that credibility and trust. That why should this psychiatrist go to you versus someone else? And well, all these other trusted psychiatrists are doing that. And that's exactly the playbook that we used. When I just had the idea for Moxie Scrubs, I said, look, nurses are the largest and fastest growing segment of the healthcare workforce. They actually have disposable income. How come they don't have a brand of their own? You know, like runners have Nike, hikers have like Patagonia. Who and what is the brand for nurses? And so I went after that demographic and I said, I'm going to create this lifestyle brand for nurses. And I went to all the nursing associations and I said, look, no one's looking at the nurse. And I really wanted your support. It's a crowded market. This is the pandemic. Things are tough. You know, can I lean on you for that support? And, you know, the American Nurses Association said, gosh, finally someone's looking at the nurse. You know what? And supporting a brand like Moxie Scrubs is supporting nurses. Supporting mission-driven brands is supporting this consumer. And the relationship with them is what spearheaded everything for us in the market, where nurses got to learn about Moxie right away. So I think that's, you know, just a great case study of how you can make that right connection by reaching out to who the authority is in that field.
And the power of connectivity, because I actually was doing exactly what you were doing. So again, Startup Boston Week connections. I would argue create your own watering hole. So I was trying to do the same thing of learning about the behavioral health space, working with clinicians. And I had worked 7.5 years in healthcare and come from a science-based family. And yet, you know, you still face the question of how do you have those discussions with physicians? So there was a professor that I knew was really big in healthcare and had started his own companies, sponsored a lot of students. I met him at an event and I tried to build, some conversation with him. Later, I found out he was writing some new cases for a new course. He didn't really know me, and I offered and said, oh, I'd love to do this. I can contribute this amount of time. He's like, okay, yeah, maybe. And so I thought, okay, here's somebody that I know I would love to work with who is experienced in this space. And what I did then was like, okay, if I can't pitch myself to him, I'll have him come join something I build. So I built like a community around behavioral health and generative AI and mental health. And I just started running events over the summer, and it grew from like 5 people to 10 people to 30 people. And then I had him come speak at one of the events. And then he saw how well it went and how active this community was, that he then that day was like, do you want to write a case for me? I have so much work to do. He like didn't even remember that I had pitched it maybe a month prior. And so from there, he's become a great advisor and connected me then to other founders that are in this space. So I think that was my lesson, was I had been looking for a year for a community that was meeting my needs versus creating it from scratch. So I know you're the experts, but I hopped in there. So any other questions in the crowd?
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Omkar. So my question would be, a venture who by a mandate requires to be raising capital, but doesn't themselves require to raise capital, like not so much actually, but a limited amount. What would be their investment? Like, how are they looking at angel investors or any funds who are looking to invest in their company? Like, what would be their price set for the company for fundraising, to be honest, and as an early stage startup?
Sorry, I was not clear.
I wasn't clear enough actually, to be
Can you
honest.
rephrase
Yes,
the?
I'll rephrase it
Yeah,
much
please,
better.
thank you.
So, so if it's an early stage startup who doesn't want funding to be raised, to be honest, but has to do the funding for the sake of it, to register itself, to make a domain for necessities, to be honest, not for expenditure, for lavishes. What would be the ideal investing pitch that they would want to focus the investors to focus on, and what amount of equity they should be giving out to them?
Yeah, and again, folks who have raised money can chime in, but my 2 cents is the first thing that you have to start is like, why do you need the money, right? And what are you going to do with that money, right? Once you get through the what and the why, and how you do it, you have the plan together, and you have, if it's a physical product, you have a prototype, or if it's a service, you have the MVP, whatever. I think the first thing that you have to really understand is what problem you're solving for, and what is your business goal. Like, how soon you want to scale. Because once you go to the in front of any investor, whether it's family funds or it's VCs, the first thing that they will ask you, what is the problem you're solving for? It's scalable enough, is big enough. And for instance, if we give you money, what are you going to do about it? So if you're not sure that you need money, this is the first time I've heard that I don't need money, but I have to do it to, showcase. So I'm not sure what the specifics of the business is, but I think you don't raise money if you don't need money. You only raise money when you know that you need money to scale. There are a lot of, like, food is very capital intensive. It's very, 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 very difficult to be bootstrapped, because, once you get into, especially in the retail and omni-channel space, you need to really drive velocities. So it just depends what industry you are in, but be clear on if you need money, why you need money. Everything else comes downstream, like, how much equity or no equity, that's different. I don't know, Alicia, if you have anything to on this.
Yeah, I think I heard you a little differently. I think you were saying that you need the funds in order to register the business and then get your domains and et cetera. So those are actually startup costs. And so I would call that a pre-seed round, which is where you're proving your minimal viable product. And so how do you value just the idea of where you are? And actually Mass Challenge has a great article on that with several methods of how to value an early stage pre-revenue startup. And I actually calculated based on the different rubrics that they provided. Here's how much risky the business is. Here's how much capital or the IP or the value of the IP, the value of the team. And you can actually then come up with a gauge of a range for that. And that's what I used when I raised my pre-seed round. So we just had the idea. We had a supply chain partner already, and we had an investor who was financing all of our inventory. So based on one of the rubrics we used, it said that, you're anywhere from a 5 million to 12 million pre-money money valuation, because it would take 5 years or X amount of capital to have built this supply chain from scratch. So we actually raised our first pre-seed round at a 5 million valuation from the idea, because we had the resources and structure in place. And then we had some talented individuals come to the brand as well. So there's a lot of resources out there. Again, check out so many of the startup programs and accelerator programs, like Techstars is another popular one. They have great resources that can help you understand how to value your idea and how not to give too much away too early on.
Yeah, and there are a lot of different ways. So, what works for us might not work for you. There's school of thought where you can really do all these startup cost in a very, very scrappy way. Take a legal Zoom. When you don't even know if your idea would be successful, you don't need to go on raising. Raising is an option, but there are a lot of ways where you can bootstrap, test your ideas, be out there. My favorite thing that I tell everybody in my company, hopefully you like it, is that speeding ticket is better than parking ticket. There's a cost of doing nothing. So I'll rather do things and fail and redo things than just wait for things to be perfect. So you don't have to raise money. You should be clear why you are raising money. Like in case of Alicia, she could really determine this is the need state, and they really wanted to scale up because you're manufacturing product, so you need capital for inventory and all that. But so it all depends on the idea. But if you don't have a strong enough reason to raise, you don't have to raise to cover your startup costs, because there are ways through accelerators or bootstrapping, you can figure out ways to establish a company to get it out there. You don't need to develop a perfect product. Get it out there, get tested, get consumer feedback, because pivoting will always happen because you don't know where you'll end up.
Can I just add one thing?
Oh.
Sorry. I have a couple shout outs because I am bootstrapped, so I'm in this very scrappy area. And couple things for people who are software developers. A lot of the big cloud services have credits. So for example, AWS, thank you, Jeff Bezos. I've been using credits for a lot of the services I'm hosting, and it's sometimes between $1,000 and $5,000, depending on when you apply with what program you might do. So that's one. Another one, I think a little anecdotal story is, look again into your networks. There's an organization called SCORE, and it's pretty sure it's a nationwide business organization. I reached out to SCORE. I was looking for some legal advice, and they suggested I reach out to Harvard Transactional Law Clinic. So I've been working with Harvard Transactional Law Clinic. Thank you, Harvard Transactional Law Clinic. They created my LLC. They created a contract for my service contract. They created a privacy policy, all pro bono, amazing. And the last one is, yeah, look again out to other accelerator programs. I did a pitch contest for E4All, which is another local organization that's mostly Main Street businesses, but I think if you are interested, you should look up that organization as well.
There are a lot of grants also. Massachusetts, especially Commonwealth of Massachusetts, has a lot of grants that really support small businesses. So when I came here for, in 2019, I was right where you are. All the founders were like, oh, I'm writing a grant. It's 10,000, 20,000 grant. And you put in an application. If it gets approved, you get that funding. So there are different ways. There is accelerators, there are, bootstrapping, there are grants. You just have to figure out what works for you and what you really want to do once you have that.
So I think we're right at.
Thank you.
Go. All right.
All
Big
right.
thank you to everyone here.
Thank you so much again for